Welcome to our first Brooklyn Economic Exchange series. My name is Carlo Scissura. I'm the President and CEO of the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, and we are excited to partner and co-host this event with our wonderful Borough President, Eric Adams. So let's give Eric a big round of applause. And Eric is not only the host today and our partner, but he is the first keynote speaker of this wonderful series. And in the future, we will have the SBS Commissioner, Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, really the movers and shakers in the world of business growth, economic activity, and everything that has to do with making Brooklyn a great place to do business. So let me first thank my team that really put this together: Andrew, Quinn, Adriana, Pierre, Ruben, James, Melissa. They're all here. Just wave, Brooklyn Chamber team. Thank you. And of course, the Borough President's team, led by the Borough President, our Deputy Borough President, Diana Reyna, an old friend, my dear friend, Ingrid Lewis-Martin, Sandra Chapman, Chief of Staff, Sylvia Hammer, and of course, Kai Feeder and Bennett Baruch. Let's give the Borough President's team a round of applause. So in addition to the regular breakfast, you have some really special made in Brooklyn products this morning. Brooklyn Roasting Company, thanks to Jim Munson. Crumville, did you guys try Crumville, Eric? It's good stuff. Antonella Zangari, and Jam Stand, Sabrina and Jessica. Right, good. So this is a good crowd, a good mix of people across the borough, from bids, from private, from economic development corporations. So why are we here today? First of all, of course, we're here to hear the Borough President's vision for economic development and business development and what's happening in the borough, so we're very excited about that. But really, it's important for all of you to hear from each other, to network, to get a sense of what's happening across the borough, what some of the best practices are, what's working, what's not working, how we can all assist you, and how you can all assist each other. On your chairs, you'll find some surveys that will help guide future issues that we discuss and ways to address them, as well as to update your organization's contact information. I know we've seen a bunch of changes at the bid level, so it's a good opportunity to just make sure we've got everybody where we are. A couple of things about the Brooklyn Chamber, something I'm very excited about. I know Eric is also. As of today, we have hit 1,602 members, making us the largest Chamber of Commerce in New York State, right here in Brooklyn. So we are very, very excited about that. With the recent addition of the East New York bid, we are one bid away from having every Brooklyn Business Improvement District as a member of the Chamber, and that's very, very exciting. So thank you really to all of you guys out there for joining us and working with us. For those of you that don't know, we run the New York City Business Solutions Center. Ruben Moya is our director, and we do that through the Citywide Business Solutions Center network. And that's really an A to Z assistance for small businesses. If you need loans, if you need financing, if you need business assistance, technical help, legal services, starting a business plan, finding a location, finding staff, you name it, we do it right out of the Business Solutions Center. Also, Pierre is here, director of the Navigator program. We are enrolling for Kings County individuals and small businesses under the Affordable Care Act. Open enrollment, very important, ends March 31st. So I think if you can let your networks know, open enrollment for individuals ends March 31st. And then after that, we'll be focusing on the greater Brooklyn business community. We've enrolled almost 800 individuals so far in a few months. Our Good Help program, which finds work for people out of work, is a very important program. So if you know people looking for a job or businesses looking to place people, reach out to us and we can help you with that. And Brooklyn HealthWorks continues to be a model for small business health insurance for groups of 2 or more. Very exciting. So if you know businesses looking for that. I'm excited to announce today the first ever Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce Neighborhood Services Center, where we will be working with the North Flatbush bid, and I know the President, Regina Cahill, is here. So what does that mean? Our vision, and I know it's a vision that the Borough President has, is to leave downtown Brooklyn, although we love downtown Brooklyn, Katie, and be out in neighborhoods, be out in communities. So the first one will be at the North Flatbush bid, working with the board of directors there, and that's very exciting. So we'll be there 1 or 2 days a week. We will have a full-service business center there. We will have New York City Business Solutions. We will have technical assistance. We'll have a member of the Navigator program, and most importantly, we'll be assisting the bid in doing the day-to-day services that it needs. This is a very, very exciting partnerships. James Dean Ellis, raise your hand. James will be assigned to the North Flatbush bid for the next few months, and then we'll see what happens in the future. So that is a very, very exciting time to be out in the community and really rolling up our sleeves and helping businesses door to door in neighborhoods, which is very important. Let me really thank Small Business Services, of course, newly appointed Commissioner Maria Torres Springer and Chris Goddard for really working with us to make this happen. So a lot of work to do, a lot of great things happening. Eric and I and Diana get to stand up here and talk and do our best to help, but you guys are in the trenches. So really feel free to use our assistance at any point in time. So with that, let me introduce our Brooklyn Borough President, Eric Adams. So Eric has come in with a very clear agenda, One Brooklyn, and we are all excited about that. In everything we do and say, we are One Brooklyn, and that's what the Borough President talks about. And that's why we went from doing this at our office to saying we are one together with the Borough President and partnering, because we are all about partnerships throughout the borough, in all communities, in every neighborhood, in every walk of life, and in every industry. So I think as we look together for the future, we're going to be looking to you, Eric, to help guide us, to help guide the conversation, to help making sure that businesses succeed. There's a lot of talk on a citywide level about additional regulations for businesses. You've heard me say it many times. We don't want additional regulations. We want deregulations. We want assistance for businesses. Yesterday, the mayor signed the Paid Sick Leave Act. We continue to call for slow implementation, because many of the businesses in your bids are really going to be hit hard by it. We continue to call for a small business ombudsman at the Department of Consumer Affairs, so that businesses have someone to go to, not just someone who's going to give them fines. And the reason I bring this up is because I can tell you that our Borough President has been a leader in helping small businesses, in voicing the concerns of small businesses, of going out there and talking about small business issues, of making sure that we are not just kind of 10th in a line of issues, but that we're at the top, because as the Borough President has said, if businesses are not opening up in communities, putting locals to work, you have no communities. So with that, I am very excited about this partnership. I'm excited about the future. I'm excited to welcome our Borough President, Eric Adams.
Good morning, and I can't say enough about thanking Carlo and the Chamber staff for just the friendship and atmosphere of creating the necessary partnership to do what's right for Brooklyn. And I just want to touch on one topic before we move forward. Years ago when I played sandlot, they called it football, we used to have what's called the pocket. That's the group of men who stand around you and protect you while you have the ball. And in order to be a good quarterback, you have to have the skill of staying in the pocket and being able to read the field. No matter if you were sacked earlier, or if you're still recovering from a concussion or a broken hand, if you are a good quarterback, you can withstand that pressure around you. And so if there are any New York Post reporters in the room, I can stand the pressure. I'm going to move the ball down the field. I'm not going to be distracted. I'm not worrying about being sacked or recovering from a blow previously. The name of the goal is to move Brooklyn over the line so we can score and finally people can take home a championship ring. I'm the man for the job. And so we're in a good place. And I want to again thank the Chamber and for what they have done around business. And it's interesting that Carlo and I, at the same time, came to this same conclusion. We are not going to be successful by being in a sterilized environment of a beautiful building or beautiful office space. People are hurting out on the streets. And the team and the concept and the thought of really taking our skill set out to the everyday neighborhoods just has been amazing. And he and I speak of it often, of how do we continue to ensure that everyday Brooklynites receive the knowledge and information that can actually improve their lives. And Carlo, I thank you for that concept, and I thank you for enjoying and sharing that spirit and that energy with me. Our borough is doing great. We're in an international level. Everyone is coming to Brooklyn. But we cannot forget that Brooklyn's reputation is its neighborhood. Its cachet are the everyday people in the communities that we are serving. And that's how we understand this borough. And all of you in this room has been dedicated to the commitment of moving this borough forward and ensuring that we can do great business. And government has no business being in your business. Government is supposed to build business and turn this into a state that was once called an empire state because empires were built here, and we want to return to that concept of building an empire. While neighborhoods like downtown Brooklyn and Dumbo and Fort Greene are growing fast in economic growth, there are many parts of the borough that is actually being left behind. We heard it before that small businesses is the engine that drives our economy, but now we have to make it true by giving those small businesses the support that they deserve. As Borough President, my #1 priority is to ensure that the borough grows as a whole. Carlo said it, my staff said it, I have been drilling it into everyone that I meet, one Brooklyn. It doesn't mean we want to be in first place. It means that we want to ensure that the entire body of Brooklyn is healthy. I think about one of the sad days that I've ever realized is that when I was in the gym and my personal trainer told me, Eric, you can't just exercise one part of your body. You got to exercise the entire anatomy of your entire body to make sure it's healthy. You can't have healthy arms or legs or guts. If the whole body isn't healthy, then you, in fact, are only cheating yourself. So Brooklyn must have a healthy business anatomy. And that includes not only the business community, it includes the environment around the business community. It also includes the people. Because if we don't have healthy, educated consumers, then they're not going to have the resources to visit your businesses. So the purpose of our goal and what we want to accomplish is to create a holistic approach and a holistic environment as we grow Brooklyn. And so I'm here today first and foremost to make sure that we create that body. A strong, healthy body. I'm almost the person that you would call the personal trainer for the borough. We want to do some good things. First, with our businesses. Our borough has a multitude of resources. I am extremely surprised to find out that how much we leave on the table. How much is left on the table that we're not accessing. We have a great CUBE program right across the street at Brooklyn Law School that gives free legal advice to small businesses, yet it's not utilized at the level that it ought to be utilized. We want to encourage people to go out and look at that. A bootstrapping entrepreneur in Brownsville should know that the Brooklyn Law School program is there for them and to continue to help them grow. We need to increase the togetherness of the business. Local real estate developers, I believe I heard some that stood up today. They should be part of the process to allow people who are growing out of space in Sunset Park to move in some of the other IDCs and some of the other areas to ensure that the growth of their business continue to grow. We were happy, Diana and I, when we entertained and brought in all of our tech businesses here in the conference room to hear from them firsthand. What do they need to expand here in the Tech Triangle? And the Tech Triangle cannot merely stay in downtown Brooklyn. Downtown Brooklyn will continue to grow, but we need to ensure that all parts of the borough is growing. Robert Moses, I talk about it often. Robert Moses built bridges to prevent buses and transportations out to Long Island. The new Robert Moses concept is the lack of proper technology and broadband out to other parts of Brooklyn. You cannot build a business in Brownsville or East New York when you can't get the technology you need and the speed of technology that's in those areas. If we don't force the expansion and to include that technology is there, we are starving those businesses. There's more than one way of saying business is not welcome, and that is one of those ways that we want to correct and make sure the build-out is there and make sure it's properly done. If a manufacturer has outgrown their space in North Brooklyn, let's coordinate to make sure that they find a home in Sunset Park in East New York. Some great things are happening there. We're fortunate to have Andrew Kimball, who was at one time at the Navy Yard, is now in the Sunset Park area and expanding that area. The entire sector also must play a role. I know that we could do a better job. We have great organizations like New York City's Small Business Solutions Center, operated by the Chamber, and helping people to navigate the permit process, which is often costly, is often difficult. I never knew a human being could walk as slow as I saw someone in the Department of Building. It is amazing. And then the game that you play of applying for a permit just to have one item incorrect and have to start the process all over again. And I'm happy the mayor's office is here because Mayor de Blasio understood on the ground when he did an analysis of how our businesses are suffering from citation through taxation through citation. Countless number of businesses are receiving fines for simple things as having a liquor license in a metal frame instead of a wood frame, a $500 fine, or having tables situated in the wrong area. The difficulties of navigating government is actually getting in the way of everyday businesses. You are paying fines so that you don't have to go down and deal with governmental agencies. That is wrong and that's not right. And we must do a better job of ensuring that there's a welcome mat and easier ways to ensure that if there are fines, how do we reform the system? I don't believe that every issue that takes place should be a fine that is coming out of the pocket of small businesses. We can put in systems where a person could take corrective action within a period of time to ensure that they don't receive a fine. And the goal is to show how do we ensure that businesses are able to move in a successful fashion. And that's not the model that we've had for the last 12 years. Let's hope that the current administration would understand the goal is not to fine businesses, but the goal is to find places so business can grow. And that's the mindset that Brooklyn Borough Hall is going to take with you as a partner. Over the coming months, I'll be coordinating with developing initiatives and policies that aim to help businesses move into the 21st century. We cannot have a strong Brooklyn if we don't ensure that every business has, at a minimum, a website. How do we have all of this growth of technologies in the borough that's disconnected from the small businesses? You can't thrive as a business if no one knows you exist, and you do not exist if you are not on the internet and if you're not using technology to promote your business, to e-blast, to talk about your sales, to make sure that people are aware of your sites, to make sure what's happening in your community is known. There's an entire industry of technology and communication that is not being used by everyday businesses. We cannot stay in the 20th century in a 21st century business environment, not in the borough of Brooklyn. Brooklyn will lead the way in ensuring that all our small businesses, at a minimum, are using the technology that they need for their business to grow. A business can't be successful if nobody knows it exists. And just as I want all businesses to be utilizing updated technology and operating practice, I want the city to update its business practice. I want you to understand something. It's about also the people who are involved. We are collecting data and information of free services for people. NYU has a free dental plan. would have dental vans that go out and teach and let their scholars and practicing dentists, new dentists, go out and do free services. Those services can be in your bids and local LDCs and IDCs where your everyday customers are coming not only to provide service in your stores, but to receive services for themselves. And improving our environment. I was troubled to hear with all the good things that is being done over at Best-Stuy Restoration Plaza to have Best-Stuy business area designated as one of the dirty areas in the borough is unacceptable. With the good things that is being done there, we have to change the culture of the people in the community and let them provide part of the services to ensure that our bids are places that are beautification as well as good places and safe places to be. And then open the community. Some areas, go to 3rd Avenue in Bay Ridge. Over the summer months, they have a beautiful program where the streets are open and people walk the streets and shop in the restaurants and sit during the 3rd Avenue Fair. There are parts of Brooklyn that are not having those same forms of luxury, those same forms of allowing people to come together and walk the streets. Pedestrian plazas are in some parts of the borough and not in other parts of the borough. Let me tell you why. We have what I believe is called the brain drain in many parts of the community. Young people who grow up in the Brownsvilles and East New Yorks and part of Bushwick, when they receive their economic opportunities or when they receive their educational opportunities, the first thing they do is they leave. They move to the Borum Hills, the Park Slopes, the Prospect Heights, the Fort Greens. And so if you were to do a mapping of the cluster and see where the largest number of deputy mayors, of master degrees, PhDs, and doctors and attorneys, and those who are architects and know how to put together proposals, you will find them clustered in certain parts of the borough. We did an analysis the other day to look at what zip codes actually request capital funding from Borough Hall. And it's a depressing look when you see that certain zip codes are not requesting funding at all because no one is there helping them. So I am not saying you should stay or you should not live wherever you want to live. But we have to make sure the entire borough grows. Part of the goal and the skill set is to reach out to those other communities and teach them how to prepare those proposals that many of you know how to do. Reaching beyond our geographical boundaries and understanding that the greatness of this borough is not going to be done by raising one neighborhood at a time, but raising the entire borough at a time. And that's my goal. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm hoping to accomplish. And the only way that I can do that is by growing small businesses. Because the people you employ, for the most part, are unemployable in other areas. You're the starting point for them. You're the minor leads that allow them to graduate into the major leads or to see your business grow to one of the major industries, like MakerBot. Right here in Sunset Park, the 3D printer that is growing at alarming rates and moving to larger and bigger spaces because of their employees. When I went to visit their office, I was surprised to see everyday people with high school equivalency diplomas, and some of them didn't have any education at all, went from learning how to turn a screw to actually putting in place motherboards and building computers, giving them an opportunity to ensure local employment and local development creates local achievements and local accomplishments. So here we are. We don't only want to let you know what our vision is. Diana and I want to hear from you. So I want Diana to come up and with all of her energy that she has done as a city council, around small business and MWBE programs. I want her to share some of her thoughts, and then we want to hear directly from you and spend a moment or two to take notes and see what we should do as the Borough President's office in ensuring that business continue to grow in Brooklyn and we continue to have a business-friendly environment. More than a tree will grow in Brooklyn. A business will grow in Brooklyn. If I'm Borough President, I can make it happen. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Borough Hall. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to gather together, not because you're not already aware of our great borough, but because you have invested in our great borough. I want to thank all of you for coming this morning and being able to spend some time. This is an opportunity for us walking the beat, as I say, or quote Eric, our borough president, mentioning how he went from law enforcement with one partner and now has a different partner in government in me. And so as his deputy, I wanted to just make sure that you appreciate our agenda. It's your agenda. And together, we can set goals that can be achievable. For instance, throughout the borough, there's industrial business zones. The industrial business zones have to have their mayor's office of industrial and manufacturing reclaim it so that it is once again what its intention was in 2006 when it was established, to recommit to that policy and perhaps even strengthen the policy of industrial manufacturing, so that when we have artisanal goods being made in Brooklyn and growing in Brooklyn as a company, that we can maintain them in Brooklyn. And it is through these IBZs, the industrial business zones, and having a direct connection to the mayor, making sure that the mayor is hearing directly from the businesses through IBZ providers who were established in 2006. I know Leah Archibald is here from Ivico. One of our greatest efforts in maintaining manufacturing cannot be done on claiming what is a geographical area. It needs a support system. And it is these solution providers, as far as Leah is concerned, that continue to have that vibrant conversation, the day-to-day, real-time information, directing what would be the mayor's office in making sure that it's not a sounding board where it bounces off and nothing gets done, but rather it gets channeled so that the slow person walking the halls of the buildings department don't continue to keep you walking in circles. And we need that type of effort. And I know that we have an opportunity here with this new administration. They have committed to the borough president that this is one of the areas they really want to begin to focus on. And we have to keep the pressure going. We have to make sure that this is the opportunity for the funding levels of those providers to be increased, to match what would be the 2006 levels. We cannot accept what is the perception of a commitment for industrial policy. We want the substance behind the industrial policy. In addition to that, just making sure that we're strengthening our MWBEs. It is no longer enough that we can say through Local Law 1, which is the latest version of the MWBE policy, to accept that certification is enough. In Brooklyn, we want to see contracting opportunities, and we have to start analyzing those numbers, making sure that those numbers are going to mean we are seeing the connection of development to that MWBE company. And the greatest challenge for this developer is using a database that has no meaning, because if they have to have one staff member dedicated full-time in just sitting and going through this 4,000 plus company list of MWBE certified companies, to just being able to ask each company, what is your service? What is your capacity? What is your bonding capacity? What is your workforce? What's your specialty? They will spend at least 6 months worth of, instead of contracting with an MWBE, taking inventory of each company on the MWBE list. And so reforming our database is how we can continue to connect development to contracting with MWBEs. That's a call to action. And we want to continue our conversations with the Department of Small Business Services. This is not new to them. I know that as chair of the City Council Small Business Committee, I pressured and made sure that this was something I was relentless in asking for, because it's not enough to just certify. And we're making leaps and bounds as far as progress is concerned, but the job is not done. And that's the message. I don't apologize for being tough. And the issue as far as our borough president had just mentioned regarding space, retention, it is important that we all understand when we see the opportunity of land use and development, that we are asking the questions as to where is the small business in your development, that we take advantage of what is the navigating government of each community process, where we have an opportunity to appoint small businesses to our community boards. Monica, who's a small business, has just put in her application. We need to take advantage of placing priority on the small business so that she's representing the rest of the small business voice on that community board. And when Monica sits on the community board, she will influence development opportunities so that she's asking the right questions that are important to the small business community, because she is the small business owner. We are in the position of influencing development in Brooklyn. And it starts with each and every one of us. If Monica fails to ask how much square footage of raw space on your street level will you be developing for the small business, then our job has not been completed. And making sure that Monica feels empowered to be able to ask that question is our job here at Borough Hall. I wanted to just share final remarks, and this is exciting. I wanted to just quote a few of what is percentages in the city of, in Brooklyn as part of the city of New York. More than 15% of the city's private jobs are now in Brooklyn, while Manhattan's share has dropped to 60% from 65% in the same period. The borough's jobs grew by 19% from 2000 to 2012. Fueled by retail, healthcare, technology companies, design firms, and manufacturers. Much of Brooklyn's job growth has spiked on retail, and there are about 11,000 retail jobs that have been added since 2000. The film and TV production industry is also booming. New York is helping its entertainment industry by providing attractive incentives to stay and grow in the state and could potentially surpass Los Angeles as the leading entertainment cluster in the United States. Movie and television production employment has been growing at 20% a year since 2005, and Brooklyn is where everyone is coming to make their projects. Let's celebrate, because thanks to the incentives, New York produced 4 critical acclaimed films in 2013 during our Borough President's tenure in the Senate. In all, New York City Productions collected 20 Academy Award nominations. Tourism in New York City is a tremendous generator in keeping our economy booming. As follows: total visitor spending from New York City tourism in 2013 was $39.4 billion compared to 2012, which was $36.9 billion. Total wages generated by New York City tourism in 2012 was $19.7 billion, and total New York City jobs supported by visitor spending in 2012 was 339,303 jobs. Total taxes generated by visitor spending in 2012 was $9.3 billion. New York City household benefited from an average of $1,575 in tax savings as a result of travel and tourism. 13 hotels opened in Brooklyn between January 2011 and June 2013. Another 8 are in the pipeline through 2016. But there's a big risk in promoting hotel production for Brooklyn. And this is where the borough president and I have a healthy disagreement. We have our IBZs, and industrial business zones are M zones. M zones allow you, as of right, to build hotels. If we build what is the incentives for hotels rather than space of a mixed use, then we won't continue to see those businesses grow and retained in Brooklyn. So we have to make sure that there's a healthy balance, that we can live, work, and play in Brooklyn, that we understand we're going to price ourselves out of businesses in order to give what would be the as-of rights in manufacturing zones to the hotel uses. You can build a church in a manufacturing zone. It's as of right as well. And so I'm alluding to the fact that we also have to revisit our zoning text laws. They cannot remain as they are today. The number one ask today is commercial space. You can build a hotel as part of your commercial development. And so we also have to set the tone, because we want to understand what is a mixed community and what makes it function. It's a little bit of everything. It's not sacrificing one for the other. So having mentioned what is that, and complementing what the borough president has already mentioned, we want to welcome you to an open discussion, to hear from you how we in Borough Hall can help you. And I wanted to take the time to thank Carlo Scissura, the president, its board of directors at the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, and its great team for bringing us all together here today. So you wanted to clap? Go ahead, please. Absolutely. So do we have our first candidate? I know we've been joined by a few other people from other bids. At least I didn't see our Grand Street bid. Introduce yourself. Thank you, Artene. Are there any questions? Yes, please.
I'd like to know how, in Red Hook, there are abandoned buildings that, is there any way we could find out from Borough Hall who owns them, what can be done to use them? Because there's a lot of space of abandoned buildings not being used that businesses could use, or either affordable houses could be built on.
Mm-hmm. That is one of the projects that our borough president has currently made sure he is going to have an assessment, an inventory of all our stock as far as property is concerned in Brooklyn. And we're going to come up with this document, and it's going to take time, but we hope that this inventory database is going to allow us to plan ahead. There's a lot of hoarding, one could say, of space. And it's about a little mixture of speculation, and they don't owe a mortgage, and therefore I could sit on this and pay my taxes. And the capital, right? No one wants to spend if they don't have a plan for their property. And so we have to understand who falls in what category and bring those individual property owners to Borough Hall and connect with opportunities so that a company who needs a co-packing facility has the space to be able to work with ITAC to build out what is the potential of a co-packing facility in an underutilized building. And so those are all ingredients in this room. And those are the ingredients that we have to connect together. Borough President, I don't know if you want.
And also, how does a neighborhood, I know Monica and Mary from Red Hook, how do they form a bid?
Well, I'm not the expert. I know we have small business services here, and I do want to share with you, there has to be a buy-in from the property owners, most of all. And there has to be what would be an LDC to start doing the work. And I know that Monica has already started working on the status of a local development corporation. Therefore, that will lead to the organizing efforts necessary in order to get the property owners together, its elected officials at the state, federal, and city level to be able to buy into the concept of a bid. And I'm going to have Carlo Scissura address further.
Thank you. And Chris, please jump in because we're working together on this. So we are actually in the process right now at the Chamber, and James is our point person on it, forming two bids. One of them is on 7th Avenue in Park Slope, and one of them is on 13th Avenue in Dyker Heights. And I see Pat Condren here from Bay Ridge. He's been very helpful with the 13th Avenue one. So basically, 13th Avenue had a merchants group for many years. They finally were able to organize, and Chris is there every month with James, and he just said to me, I have to go tomorrow night because I need to yell at some people because they haven't finished the paperwork. But it is a process, and it's a long process, but once you get an organized group, and it's not a large group, it's a small group of people, merchants, business owners, communities, and the local councilman, because remember, if the local councilman is not on board, it's a tougher sell. But once you get those ingredients, they start working. James, how long would you say we've been working on 13th Avenue?
13th Avenue is probably about 11 months now, as a formal process.
So 12 to 18 months to really get the bid seriously going, if everything works. Chris?
No, and the first step, again, my name is Chris Goddard, I'm with the Department of Small Business Services, and we oversee the Business Improvement District. We have program, we have 69 of them in the city. We also help to form new bids, so we oversee that process. So really the first step is, if you're interested in this, like, come see me. I'll give you my card after this, and we can talk about kind of getting that work going behind the scenes. Carlos is right, and the Deputy Borough President is right. It really takes like a local buy-in, and it takes some group or some people there that can kind of help to organize in that area. And then what we want to do is we want to see property owners and business owners come together and sit at a table and talk some of these things out. It can take time, or if you're really efficient and you got a great group of people that's really connected with the community, we can do it pretty quickly. But it depends on how many people you can bring to the table and who you know, and then we can start that kind of work together. And then, again, Department of Small Business Services, we go to every meeting, we work with every group. So I'm familiar with, we probably have 25, 30 of these efforts going on around the city right now that are in some stage, and we're there to help you. So you can, again, we can swap information, and I'll be happy to talk to you.
And one other thing, it costs a little money because there are mailings, there are meetings, there are certified mailings. So one of the things we've done both for 13th Avenue and 7th Avenue is, as part of our neighborhood budgets, we are picking up the costs for forming these bids. So that takes some pressure off, and I know Chris is very happy about that. That takes some pressure off the merchants. Toby, do you want to introduce yourself, Toby? I know you walked in late. You should repeat that in the microphone because we're all excited about that.
I'm a developer based in Brooklyn. Actually, grew up in Flatbush, and my dad used to have a factory on the waterfront in Williamsburg, a business my grandfather started about 60 years ago. So very excited to be back in the neighborhood, and we're building the first ground-up spec office building in Brooklyn since the Great Depression. I'm a former venture capitalist and have a lot of friends in the tech industry and other related businesses, small businesses in Brooklyn as well, and very excited to be part of this discussion.
How many square feet is the office?
It's going to be, we're looking at different options, but it's going to be over close to 200,000 square feet.
That's great.
Thank you. We had a question about First Stuyvesant Restoration.
I think this question is both for the Borough President's office and the Chamber. I think that there's a bit of a tension between a couple of our goals. One goal is to promote small business and create conditions that would allow them to thrive. And the second goal is to get our residents in jobs that pay sustainable wages, they have good health care and other benefits. Sometimes it feels like there's a tension between those things. There are certain things that you would think would be fundamental to a sustainable wage, and that would mean imposing, in some cases, for example, a higher minimum wage. Or even, for me, it's not so outlandish that people get sick leave. Some of those things seem kind of basic, but at the same time, we have merchants and other business people who are saying that's burdensome. So my question is, from the Borough Hall's perspective, and also from the Chamber's, how do you resolve that? Because in my view, a lot of the jobs, let's put the tech sector aside, a lot of the jobs that we're attracting, structurally, they're low income. And a lot of the businesses say, if we have to pay more, whether it's tourism or retail or whatever, they cry about higher wages. So how do you resolve those two things?
It's an excellent question. And, there's never going to be a resolution permanently because the cost of living goes up constantly. And so to keep up with that is very difficult. Now, we need to see more, and I've visited 5 boroughs as far as businesses are concerned, touring many different versions of small business. And there's anything from your single contractor or freelancer to your struggling artist, to your retail, to your hotel, boutique hotel, which is the other version of paying less and paying no health benefits of what is the hotel industry. And that is becoming the rampant model in Brooklyn, to your employee sharing company. And I think we need to do a better job exposing what would be options to create a healthier small business model, to create the list of what does one do in order to have pay equity, have health benefits as an option. Because these are all things that there's an opportunity to create buying power. And buying power, I don't think, is something that we talk about enough. And when you have buying power, you negotiate better deals. And negotiation is an art form that not many people practice today. You see higher rents. You have businesses that are paying extremely. Just my successor was evicted out of his space, my old space. Commercial space is something that doesn't exist in Williamsburg. And today, we heard Toby mention how she's going to be creating, because there's a demand for it. When you create demand, you have you have less of a buying power. And so we want to be able to understand those models, bring them to light, and let's have a conversation around that. It seems very simple, but it's not, because if it was simple, then everybody would be creating that model. And we don't need to be duplicative as far as trying to rack our brains to understand that we have to get these issues resolved, but we certainly have to look at where it exists and where it's working, how we can bring that connection to an environment that would like to hear how successful that is and implement it themselves within their own environments. Carlo.
Our position is simple. You create paid sick leave, you should equally create something to help the business. So if we're telling the business, starting April 1st, but you have 6 months, you have to give paid sick leave to every employee, 5 or more, fine, but do it in a way that doesn't kill the employer. So now you're saying to the employer, you have to give paid sick leave. It's not as simple. You have to keep records. You need more HR. You need all of this. What are you giving back? So our thing is apples to apples. You want to add regulation, you have to give back. So create a tax credit, create an energy credit, create something that the business will be able to breathe. As the borough president mentioned also, stop giving the ridiculous fines. Announce. The mayor announces paid sick leave yesterday. He should be announcing the same day, we are cutting fines in the budget. Not the same number in the budget that was in the last budget. Show the businesses you are giving. That's how I think you do it. You give and you take, and it becomes a balance.
Should I just?
Yes.
One in that area of the world that seems so beautifully desolate to the film industry. Last weekend in Red Hook, we had a film company show up and in about 36 hours put up signs eliminating 28 out of 43 blocks of parking in our neighborhood. 28 out of, and the best of it was more than half of that was being held just in case. They needed it. I understand there's a lot of money coming in from the film industry. I own a liquor shop. I can't get my deliveries. My customers can't find parking. I can't find parking. There's got to be, again, when I understand that there is a lot of money coming in, but really, my last moment of it when I'm told that the industry is coming in to help me, but two of the managers of it walk into the store and say, "Great space, let me keep this for future reference," come up to the counter with two $2 bottles and hand me an Amex card. And I looked and said, "And this is the economic benefit to my community? Keep it. Come back when you got the cash." So there's got to be, I mean, I understand these are great things, but they're like the marauding Huns when they come into the neighborhood.
Right,
So again, this is this notion of balance.
right,
I lived there.
right.
I have a business. And, you know, you gotta love when everything is the end of the world, coercion, what are the other ones we've had lately? Destruction of the world. Let me have my business.
Right. I appreciate those comments and give her a round of applause. I think your comments are accurate, and I think there's a insensitivity placed on the community who's hosting. And I want to just share, there needs to be better coordination and a survey after the film industry comes into a community to be able to field what is that sentiment so that better coordination exists after that one particular filming. Because the filming is going to continue. It's how do they film in your home that's going to have to change. Because I didn't hear from you, can we stop it? Can we slow it down? We had...
I'd love to do that.
You'd love to? That's also what...
Are you on the list of vendors?
Yes, I am, because I'll tell you something. We don't have this happening in Brooklyn Heights, Carroll Gardens, you know, and other places.
Right.
We don't have 53-foot trucks running down Card Street at 45 miles an hour.
Right.
With retarders going down.
Right.
So,
I completely understand your concern, and we want to facilitate dialogue, right? That's what Borough Hall is here for. So we need to make sure that we're contacting the director of the film office, and let's bring together what would be conversation. Excellent.
Diana, over here.
Over there, Artene.
Diana, I'm really glad that you mentioned looking at the zoning regulations because what's happening is that even in commercial districts, we have, you know, with the volatile real estate that is happening in Williamsburg, we have property owners that are buying small properties and they're cleverly working the FAR to make the ground floor into residential spaces. And this may be happening on Grand Street, and we want to have a conversation with the new property owner, but I'm hoping that there is a way that we can visit the zoning regulations and see how we can discourage that.
I appreciate that, and I think that's something that we can collectively bring together. What would be the directors of all the bids, so that if we start organizing what would be a structural dialogue, so that we can come up with what it is you want to foresee. It's about having foresight to be able to then have what we come out of, let's say this task force on behalf of small business to encourage healthy development for the small business community, that we're able to then take it to the mayor's office on behalf of the borough president. So you're signed up to be one of our first members of that task force. And I welcome anyone who is interested in having that dialogue to call us. Kai Feeder. Kai, where are you?
Over here.
Excellent. This is our gentleman who works on economic development at Borough Hall. We will encourage you to make sure that you stay in touch with him so that we can continue today's dialogue in the future, in the near future. I know there was a Oh,
Hi.
yes.
I appreciate what you're doing here, but one of the problems I'm having is the new de Blasio administration, from what I've seen, is basically saying, I don't want small business here. Everything they've done, like Carlo says, has been about redistribution of wealth, not growing the pie. And it's not a good situation. I mean, in my business, I manage real estate in Brooklyn, and I invest elsewhere. I won't buy in Brooklyn. I invest outside in other cities because it's easy. They want you there. They appreciate your money. You give a call to government. They help you. It's a totally pleasurable place to work elsewhere. New York is a horrible place to work. And I hate to say that because I live in Brooklyn. I like it to be nice. I like it to be good. But it's awful. I mean, you know, like we talk about Red Hook, I can't imagine that any property owner or investor buys real estate just to sit on it. They probably don't do stuff with it because it's not economically viable to do something right now, and they're hoping for the future. I think it's a totally different view of that. And you know, and for me as a small businessman, it's more of don't help me, just get out of my way. I know how to run my business. Everyone here that has a business knows how to run a business. They're taking risks, but all I see are roadblocks in New York City, and it's very frustrating.
So, how many in this room know what the IDA is? That is my point. Many people don't know what government has to offer, and therefore and this is not a debate, I don't want to have a back and forth. What I am trying to express is that we have density in New York City, unlike any other state, as far as where people choose to go and therefore have less regulation. Because they're not building what would be 40-story buildings. They're building ranches or, you know, two-family at best. And here, what we have is a very complex building code that was revamped, was revised, to deal with what were aging administrative codes. And so that it also plays into what would be the regulatory process. We also have to have what would be safety in the city of New York. And where there's vulnerability and abuse, that's where regulation kicks in. And so we have to make sure that we're revising and staying current with what works, functional, without abusing the small business community. There was also, in the last 12 years, under what would be a different administration, the reverse, where the city was making money off the backs of the small business community through fines, predicting what would be millions of dollars before they were even issued as fines. And so that's not a healthy environment either. So we have to, I agree with you, we have to do better. What is better is the question, and solutions being suggested is how we can explore doing better. So if there's a solution that you would want to see because you've seen it work in other areas similar to our city, I welcome that opportunity. Yes. This is our last question.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Excellent.
I'll make it quick. So I want to thank Carlo for convening this and the borough president as well. I come at this idea of a Brooklyn economic exchange from a technology-based economic development perspective. And there really is this kind of renaissance of the new economy happening in Brooklyn, and it's not just about downtown Brooklyn or Dumbo. I think that there's a real opportunity to build on some of the public-private academic partnerships
Absolutely.
that are happening here. And so, you know, we had the president come and visit the P-Tech school, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, we haven't seen that scale. And I know that there are some things that are maybe outside of your purview, that maybe it's, you know, the chancellor's job to kind of push for more K-12 STEM programs. But I would really encourage you to think about Brooklyn as a laboratory, right? To start to think about a little bit outside of the box and to really engage some of the tech sector who are building their businesses and who live and work in Brooklyn, who are sending their kids to public schools in Brooklyn because they want to help, right? They want to be engaged proactively. And so, you know, the idea of having someone come into the community to help with the website, fantastic, right? I would really push you to think about how you can involve K-12 STEM programs, elementary schools, high schools, the engineering schools. You have this great university ecosystem that exists in Brooklyn. And so, you know, facilitating those kind of partnerships in a really sustained way will not just help the businesses who are here, but will really kind of breed and nurture the next generation
Absolutely.
of businesses here
You
in
took
Brooklyn.
the words right out of my mouth. You said it all. And that's exactly the environment that we're building here in Borough Hall and extending it out so that we're reverberating that impact. We just had a What's Up forum in North Brooklyn with Greenpoint Chamber of Commerce. And they had a tech leader in the audience. And my one question was, how many of you have tapped into your high school students for internships? No one raised their hand. There's a Williamsburg High School of Architecture and Design preparing their students with AutoCAD training, trained like an experienced 2-year, 3-year work employee for AutoCAD services. And that tech leader in the audience raised their hand and said, where could I get in touch with the school? The school was in the room. And we made that connection. And the borough president has invited the presidents of these universities and the CUNY system to be able to say to them, we need a private-public partnership here. It is not enough. We have students going to what would be college, graduating, and can't find a job because we're not preparing them for tomorrow's workforce. And we have to start them young. We have to create a pipeline where we are breeding and feeding what is tomorrow's workforce. And that begins by making sure that we're investing in our youth, that we're preparing them with a curriculum at the youngest age possible, like the UPK programs, and continuing to see that expansion on the academics with real life experience. Here today, those AutoCAD students are going to be supervised by a 17-year-old, and he will come with his peers to do work in Borough Hall with the topography unit. And they're going to be digitizing what would be all the records as far as maps are concerned for Borough Hall. That is a public-private partnership. But guess what? We need stipends opportunity, and that allows for that young person to have a paid internship. Right now, what we have is a volunteer internship, and the school is committed because that will go on their resume as an opportunity so that they shine and are brought up as far as level of experience for greater growth and perhaps a career in what would be the tech industry here in Brooklyn tomorrow. Thank you very much. Borough President Adams.
I want to, again, thank Carlo and my deputy for doing a great job. It's about, in Borough Hall, having people around you that understands the issues, and I just really appreciate her and her commitment to growing small business. And I appreciate you for coming out today, all the questions that were presented. And let's continue to have a dialogue and communicate so we can move the Brooklyn brand forward. And I thought it was an appropriate question about some of your concerns around business, and government must be more business friendly. And it is challenging sometimes navigating the complexities of starting a business, running a business, and those are the things we want to look at. But let's not kid ourselves. Brooklyn is a brand, baby. People want to be here. You know, there's a reason that this place is growing. And for every person that decides they want to go across the water, there's 10 that state they want to be in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is the center of the universe, and we're going to make it happen in the borough. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind you to please complete your questionnaire before you exit and leave it at the registration table. Thank you.
All right.